Cynthia Johnson sat at a corner table in Cafe Bloom, a stylish coffee shop tucked between two glass high-rises in Victoria Island, Lagos. Dressed in a sleek, black pantsuit, her short, natural hair neatly combed, and her lips painted a dignified nude, she sipped her caramel macchiato slowly as she stared out the window. From the outside, she looked like a woman in control, but inside, a quiet storm brewed. At 27, Cynthia was already a senior architect at Urban Line Studios, one of Lagos's top design firms. She had designed everything from luxury flats in Lekki to eco-friendly estates in Abuja. Clients respected her. Colleagues feared her. They called her the Ice Queen. It wasn't entirely unfair. She had learned long ago that softness was mistaken for weakness in boardrooms full of men. But today, even Cynthia felt tired. Her phone buzzed for the 5th time. It was her mother, Mary Johnson, texting. "He should be there by now. Remember, he's Jude Baker, the one from London. Please be open-minded." Cynthia sighed. This was her 98th blind date, the second this week. Her mother, a retired headmistress from Surulere, never failed to remind her of how women of good character get married early. Her younger cousins already had children. And Cynthia? She had skyscrapers and awards, but no ring. As if summoned by her thoughts, the door to the cafe opened. A man in a crisp white shirt and faded jeans walked in, scanning the room. He spotted her and walked over. "Excuse me, Cynthia Johnson?" he asked with a confident smile. "Yes," she replied coolly. "I'm Jude Baker. Sorry I'm late. Traffic on Eco Bridge was a mess." She forced a polite smile. Lagos traffic was a given. You planned around it. Still, she stayed. She was already here, and her mother would only schedule more if she left early. They ordered drinks and muffins. Jude talked, a lot, about life abroad, how Lagos was too rough, and how Nigerian women didn't know how to treat a man right. Cynthia nodded, barely hiding her irritation. He was handsome, but something felt performative. Then his phone buzzed. Jude glanced at it quickly and flipped it over, face down. Cynthia arched a brow. "You can answer it," she said flatly. "I don't mind." He smiled tightly. "It's nothing important." She stared at him, unconvinced. Eventually he stood. "Excuse me, I'll just take this quickly outside." Cynthia watched him walk out. Something about the way he moved, hurried, nervous, piqued her instincts. Her architectural mind, trained to see cracks even in smooth walls, sensed something off. Quietly, she followed. Through the glass door, she heard him. "Why are you calling now?" Jude hissed. A female voice replied, sharp and emotional. "Because the kids haven't eaten, and the landlord is threatening to evict us." I said I'll handle it. I'm busy. Busy doing what, Jude? Pretending to be single again? I'm your wife, Jude. Cynthia's heart slammed against her chest. Wife? She stepped forward. Jude. He spun around. His face turned white. Cynthia, I can explain. You lied to me. You're married, with kids, and you think I'm desperate enough to fall for this nonsense? It's not what you think. She cut him off, voice sharp as a blade. Don't even try. You're disgusting. Don't call. Don't text. Don't even exist near me. Inside the cafe, she grabbed her handbag, ignoring the stairs. As she drove through the bustling Lagos streets, tears blurred her vision. Not because of Jude, but because of what he represented. Another mask, another insult, another reason to give up. She didn't want perfect, just real. Her phone rang again. Mom. Cynthia, how did it go? Cynthia took a breath. He's married, Mom, just like the last one. Stop setting me up. There was silence. Then Mary sighed. I just want to see you happy, Cynthia. I know, but maybe happiness isn't in a man. Maybe it's in peace. As she ended the call, a quiet hunger twisted in her belly. She hadn't eaten. Far from the glitter of Victoria Island, she noticed a roadside fruit stall near 3rd Mainland Bridge. She pulled over, bought bananas and oranges from an elderly vendor. Just as she turned to leave, a soft voice called, Excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry to bother you. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Could you spare anything? She turned. The man was in tattered clothes, barefoot, with sharp cheekbones, and eyes so soulful they stopped her. She hesitated, then handed him 2,000 naira. He looked stunned. Thank you. Truly. Cynthia paused, staring at him. He bowed slightly. God bless you, Ma. She nodded slowly. Take care of yourself. As she drove off, her heart stirred. Not because of pity, but because there was something in his voice. Something different. The next morning, Cynthia Johnson stood by the window of her Aja apartment, coffee in hand, the city's pulse muted behind thick glass. The memory of that roadside encounter lingered like the aftertaste of bitter chocolate, unsettling yet strangely moving. She wasn't sure what it was about him. The stranger hadn't begged. He hadn't pleaded. He'd simply asked, with grace, with dignity. And those eyes, dark brown, filled with quiet sorrow, refused to leave her thoughts. She dressed simply that morning, white blouse, jeans, flats. No makeup, just curiosity. Before she knew it, she was driving back toward Third Mainland Bridge, toward the same fruit stall. Ah, you again, the elderly vendor smiled, recognizing her. Cynthia returned the smile but scanned the area. Then she saw him. He was sitting under a jacaranda tree, back straight, arms resting loosely on his knees. His eyes were closed, face turned to the sun like a man finding warmth after years of cold. The same patched shirt, the same worn sandals. Yet there was something noble in how he sat. Cynthia approached. The man opened his eyes and stood quickly, startled. Good morning, she said, voice even. Good morning, Ma, he replied softly. I didn't expect to see you again. I didn't expect to be here either, she admitted. I didn't get your name yesterday. He hesitated. My name is Christopher Adams, he said with measured pride. I'm just someone trying to survive. Cynthia nodded. I'm Cynthia. A pause. I hope you got something to eat yesterday, she added. Yes, Ma, I did. Thank you. You don't have to call me Ma, she said. It makes me feel like an old auntie. He chuckled. It's habit. Respect is something I never unlearned. There was silence between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was quiet, safe. What's your story, Christopher? She asked gently. He looked down. You sure you want to know? I wouldn't ask if I didn't. Christopher spoke slowly. He'd come from Enugu, where he lost both parents to illness. He moved to Lagos 3 years ago, hoping to work construction, only to be defrauded by a fake recruiter who vanished with his money. Homeless, he drifted through markets, bus stops, church shelters. Yet he never stole, never begged, just observed. I read newspapers people throw away, he said with a shy smile. I listen to how people talk. That's how I've learned. I may not have much, but I still have my mind. Cynthia was stunned. He spoke like a graduate, thoughtfully, fluently, with the kind of introspection people in boardrooms paid for in coaching sessions. You're self-taught? She asked. He nodded. I may sleep under a bridge, but that doesn't mean I don't think. She exhaled, then made a bold offer. Would you like some food? Proper food? He blinked, surprised. You don't have to. I know, but I want to. They drove to a modest buka in Yaba, tucked between a tailor's shop and a tiny barber shop. Over bowls of hot jollof rice and fried plantain, Christopher ate slowly, politely. No shoveling, no desperation, just quiet gratitude. Cynthia found herself talking more than she had in weeks. About architecture, pressure, loneliness. John Baker, her mother's obsession with marriage. To her surprise, Christopher listened, not like a man trying to solve her, but like one who truly cared to understand. Most people talk to respond, he said. You're one of the few who talk to connect. That's rare. The words touched something raw in her. After lunch, they walked a little. Cynthia bought him bottled water and a clean t-shirt from a roadside vendor. He protested, but she waved it off. I won't solve your life, she said, but maybe I can be a friend. Christopher stopped walking. Cynthia, he said quietly, a woman like you doesn't need to be seen with someone like me. A woman like me, she replied, eyes locking with his, is tired of being seen with people who pretend. Christopher looked at her, truly looked, and something shifted. He nodded slowly. Then I'd be honored to be your friend. Later that evening, back in her apartment, Cynthia replayed the day. She didn't pity him. She admired him. The world had stripped him of everything except what truly mattered: character, intellect, dignity. And in that moment she realized he wasn't the one who had nothing. It was all the men she dated before who had been empty. 2 days had passed since Cynthia Johnson sat across from Christopher Adams, sharing bowls of rice and quiet truths, but their brief friendship now lived rent-free in her mind. His words, his posture, the calm in his voice, so rare in a city like Lagos, lingered like the soft glow of morning light. It was Sunday morning. Cynthia was in her Aja apartment, watering her plants and sipping hibiscus tea. On her TV, a Yoruba wedding played. Elaborate gel, dancing uncles, dollar sprays. Her phone buzzed. Mom, don't forget the family reunion is in 6 weeks. You're not coming alone this time, Cynthia. That's final. She rolled her eyes. The Johnson family reunion was more like a marriage tribunal. Her aunts would gather like judges, serving yolof and side-eye in equal measure. The same old question would ring in the air like an alarm bell. So when are we meeting your husband? And what would she say this year? That her latest blind date turned out to be someone else's husband? Cynthia set her cup down, heart pounding. A wild, ridiculous thought took root. She grabbed her car keys. Back at the roadside stall, the old fruit vendor greeted her with a smile. Ah, you again. Looking for your friend? Yes, she said, scanning the street. Christopher wasn't by the jacaranda tree this time. He was seated near a mechanic's shed, sketching with charcoal on a scrap of cardboard, shapes of buildings, skylines, roof lines. He looked up, surprised, and was that relief when he saw her? Cynthia, he stood. Didn't expect to see you today. I didn't expect to come, she said honestly, but I have a question. A proposal, actually. Christopher raised an eyebrow, curious. They sat on a broken bench in the shade. Cynthia took a deep breath. I need your help. It might sound insane, but just hear me out. He nodded. There's a family reunion in 6 weeks, she began. My mother is threatening to drag me into marriage by force if I show up alone again. Everyone's expecting me to finally bring a fiancé. Christopher tilted his head. I see. I need someone to pose as my fiancé, she said quickly before she could regret it. Just for the reunion. Just to buy me peace. I'll pay you well. Food, clothes, shelter, everything. The silence that followed was loud. Christopher blinked. You want me to pretend to be your fiancé? Yes. He frowned. Cynthia, I sleep under an overpass. I own one shirt that isn't ripped. I'm not exactly what you'd call convincing. She smiled. That's where I come in. I can train you, dress you, teach you how to act like one of us. You're serious? She nodded. Dead serious. Why me? Because you're real. You're not trying to impress me. You don't pretend, and I trust you. That means more to me than Gucci shoes. Christopher sat back, stunned. You'd let a man you just met live in your house? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded. I'm not naive. I've seen more evil in men in suits than I've seen in men on the streets. I trust my instincts. I trust you. He looked down, eyes glassy. No one's ever said that to me. Cynthia's voice softened. You don't have to say yes now. He looked up again, and for the first time he smiled fully. Not politely, not nervously, but with open joy. I'll do it, he said, not because of the money, but because I want to help you too. Later that day, Cynthia drove him to a small salon in Lekki Phase 1. The barbers stared in disbelief as she handed them crisp bills. Make him look like a CEO, she said with a wink. As the clippers buzzed and razors carved clean lines, Cynthia watched Christopher transform. Beneath the grime and tangled hair was a man with defined cheekbones, a quiet confidence, and deep eyes that now held a spark. When he stood from the chair, clean-shaven and sharp-jawed. Cynthia was speechless. "Whoa," she whispered. Christopher rubbed his neck, bashful. "Too much?" "No," she said softly. "You look different, but still you." They laughed. For a brief moment, the world felt light. That evening, back at Cynthia's flat, she showed him the guest room. It was modest, but clean, a far cry from the pavement he'd called home. "This is yours for the next 6 weeks," she said. Christopher paused at the door, hand on the frame. "Thank you, Cynthia, for the bed, for the trust, for everything." She nodded. "Get some rest. Training begins tomorrow." As she shut her door, her heart thudded louder than usual. Something was changing, not just him, her. The morning sun filtered through cream curtains as Cynthia Johnson stepped into her kitchen in Aja, wearing a loose t-shirt and silk bonnet. The aroma of ground coffee filled the room, but something else stirred her, more than caffeine: anticipation. Today marked the start of Christopher's training. 6 weeks to teach him how to dress, speak, and carry himself like the successful fiancé her family expected. But deep down, Cynthia was also preparing herself for judgment, for scrutiny, for the complicated feelings growing faster than she had planned. When she walked into the guest room, Christopher Adams was already dressed. Gray joggers, a crisp white tee, barefoot, standing by the window with a notepad in hand. "You're up early," Cynthia said, surprised. "I couldn't sleep," he replied. "The bed's too soft. I'm used to concrete." She smiled faintly. "We'll fix that." The training begins. For the next few days, Cynthia drilled him like a coach before a championship. She taught him how to hold cutlery properly, sip tea at a cafe, and speak about her work like he'd followed her journey for years. She explained how to nod respectfully at her uncles, how to say mummy instead of ma to her mother, and how to subtly boast without sounding arrogant. She handed him books: architecture, coffee table books, finance magazines, even gossip blogs, everything her family devoured. She corrected his posture, his walk, his tone. Christopher soaked it all up like dry earth drinks rain. "Where did you go to school again?" she asked one evening, genuinely curious. "I didn't," he replied simply. "Life taught me." And somehow that impressed her more than any degree could. By the 5th day, Tasha Green, Cynthia's best friend, dropped by unannounced. She strutted in wearing high-waisted jeans, oversized sunglasses, and a sharp attitude. "I came to see this mystery man you're suddenly hiding," she said, plopping onto the couch with her usual flair. Christopher walked out of the hallway in a clean button-down and tailored chinos. Tasha blinked. Cynthia introduced them. "Tasha, this is Christopher." "Christopher. Tasha, my best friend and occasional bodyguard." Tasha smiled politely but shot Cynthia a "what is going on" look. The moment Cynthia stepped into the kitchen to get drinks, Tasha leaned toward Christopher. "Listen, I don't know who you are, but if you hurt her, Lagos will be too small to hide." Christopher didn't flinch. "I understand. She's lucky to have you." Tasha's brow lifted. "You're not defensive?" "I don't need to be. You're just protecting someone you love." She sat back, a little stunned. Later that evening, after Tasha left, she called Cynthia. "Girl, who is this guy?" "What do you mean?" Cynthia asked. "He's different, quiet, no ego. Are you sure he's not a spy from a Nollywood movie?" Cynthia chuckled. "He's just real." Tasha paused. "That's rare, but be careful. The heart doesn't know the difference between real and fake when it's hungry." Cynthia ended the call, her thoughts circling those words. Lines began to blur. One evening after dinner, Cynthia sat across from Christopher at the small dining table. They were reviewing family photos, names, personalities, who to impress and who to avoid. She noticed how he remembered details, asked thoughtful questions, how he leaned in when she spoke. "You're good at this," she said, smiling. He shrugged. "I'm just good at listening. Most people talk to be heard. You talk to be understood." She looked away. "That's because most people never try to understand me." Christopher paused, then said gently, "Maybe that's why we met." The air shifted. The fake story they'd rehearsed was simple. They met through work, bonded over architecture, and fell in love. But sitting across from him now, Cynthia felt the dangerous weight of pretending. Because it wasn't pretend anymore. Not entirely. A moment. They didn't plan. That night, they watched an old Nollywood movie in the living room. The rain tapped softly against the windows. Cynthia curled her knees to her chest, sipping warm tea. Christopher sat beside her. Not too close, but close enough. As the credits rolled, she turned to him. "You're doing more than just helping me, you know." He raised a brow. "You're making me feel safe. That's rare." He didn't speak. Instead, he leaned slightly, careful, gentle. Cynthia didn't move away. Their lips met, soft, slow, uncertain. It wasn't lust. It wasn't a performance. It was relief. Two people exhaling at the same time. When they pulled apart, neither of them apologized. They just sat there, eyes closed, hearts racing. And somewhere in the quiet of her apartment, Cynthia realized she wasn't pretending anymore. The next few days passed in a strange, quiet rhythm, comfortable yet clouded with unsaid things. Cynthia Johnson woke up earlier than usual, opened her wardrobe to choose a dress for work, and paused, her hand lingering on a light blue wrap dress she hadn't worn in months. It wasn't just stylish. It was soft, romantic. Downstairs, she found Christopher Adams seated in the dining area, reviewing a list of rehearsal questions she'd created. What's Cynthia's favorite food? Who's her best childhood friend? Where did we go on our first date? He answered each one with ease. Too well. He looked up. You look beautiful today. She froze a little. The compliment wasn't part of their script. It was real. And it landed. Thank you, she said almost shyly. I should be back by 6. Let me know if you need anything. Christopher smiled. All I need is to get this right. As she stepped into her car, her heart felt heavy, for reasons she wasn't ready to admit. That afternoon at Urban Line Studios, Cynthia tried to focus on site plans and contractor emails. But her thoughts kept drifting. When her phone rang, she answered automatically, until she saw the name. John Baker. The deceitful, blind date. The one with the secret wife and kids. Why was he calling? She didn't answer. A minute later, a text appeared. So this is what you're doing now? Saw you with your new toy and Lecky. Upgraded to stray puppies? Cynthia's blood went cold. Back at home that evening, she sat on the balcony, scrolling through the message again and again, fury building in her chest. Christopher walked out, carrying 2 mugs of tea. You okay? She handed him the phone. He read it in silence, then looked up. I'm sorry he saw us. No, I'm sorry I didn't block him sooner. There was silence. Then Cynthia added, I don't care what he thinks, but I hate that he assumes you're beneath me. He doesn't know anything about you. Christopher nodded slowly. People like him judge from the surface because they fear what's deeper. Cynthia looked at him for a long moment. How do you always know the right thing to say? He shrugged. I've been silent for so long. Listening became my way of surviving. The next morning, while Cynthia prepared breakfast, Mary Johnson called again. Don't forget 6 weeks is not far. You need to take your fiancé's picture for the invitation. Cynthia hesitated. Yes, Mum, I remember. She turned to Christopher, who was reading on the couch. Want to take a few engagement photos today? He nodded. Let's do it. Later that afternoon, they stood in front of Lecky Conservation Center, where the sun filtered through palm trees and golden beams lit their faces. Cynthia wore a soft green dress. Christopher wore a crisp white shirt and jeans. Nothing fancy, but he looked like someone who belonged. They laughed, posed, held hands. And in between camera clicks, Cynthia caught herself staring at him too long. His smile wasn't just charming, it was honest. As the photographer told them to pose forehead to forehead, Cynthia felt the heat rise to her cheeks, their noses brushed, their eyes locked. It felt real, and that terrified her. That evening, Tasha Green returned, this time with 2 takeout bags and plenty of questions. I saw the engagement pics online, she said after they'd eaten. Cynthia, he doesn't look like a stranger anymore. Cynthia avoided her eyes. He's not. Tasha leaned in. Okay, girl, no shade. But be honest, are you falling for this man? Cynthia paused for a long moment. Then, I think I already have. Tasha's eyes widened. Wow, but what happens after the reunion? I don't know, Cynthia whispered. I didn't plan for this. Then maybe, Tasha said gently, you need to stop pretending and start asking what you really want. Hearts speak louder. Later that night, Cynthia sat beside Christopher on the living room couch. She turned off the TV and looked at him. This started out as a lie, she said, but now I don't know where the pretending stops. Christopher was quiet. You've changed me, Chris. I didn't realize how much I needed someone to see me, not for my status or job or how many buildings I've designed, but just me. Christopher took her hand. I see you, Cynthia. I saw you the moment you offered me kindness. And I've fallen for the woman behind the plan. She blinked back emotion. So what do we do? Christopher smiled softly. We keep going until the lie becomes the truth. The next few days felt like the calm before a storm. Cynthia Johnson moved through her Victoria Island office like usual, papers in one hand, tablet in the other. But inside, she was anything but composed. A part of her now lived in her Aja apartment, where Christopher Adams had become more than just a role. He was a presence, a comfort, a risk. But now, the moment she had dreaded since the start of this charade had arrived. Her mother wanted to meet him. On a breezy Sunday afternoon, Mary Johnson's home in Surulere was filled with the scent of fried plantain and pepper soup. The TV was tuned to African Magic, though no one was watching. Cynthia walked in first, dressed in a flowing blouse and fitted jeans. Her mother, wearing her signature Ankara buba and wrapper, eyed the doorway behind her. Where is he? Mary asked, arms folded. Then Christopher entered. He wore a soft cream shirt, navy trousers, and leather sandals. He walked with calm dignity, holding a small gift bag. Good afternoon, Ma, he said warmly, handing her a tin of premium tea. It's an honor to meet you. Mary took the tin, squinting. You're polite. Are you Igbo? No, Ma, from Enugu, but my father was half Yoruba. My mother was Nsukka. Mary nodded slowly, still sizing him up. And what do you do? I'm transitioning into real estate consulting, Ma, he said, steady. With Cynthia's background in architecture, we make a strong team. Mary's eyes flickered with approval and suspicion. Do you go to church? Yes, Ma, I was a choir boy, he added with a small smile. Cynthia nearly choked on her drink. Mary laughed. Well, at least you have sense of humor. The evening unfolded with traditional food and cautious conversation. Christopher answered every question with grace. Never too polished, never rehearsed. He made Mary laugh. He complimented her cooking without flattery. And when she asked about his parents, he told the truth. About their passing, about the struggle. But not everything. After Christopher stepped outside to take a call, Mary leaned in. He's very respectful, she said, but something about him is humble, too humble. Are you sure he's successful? Cynthia swallowed. Success doesn't always wear a Rolex, Mum. Mary frowned. You're not lying to me, are you? No, Mum, Cynthia replied. Technically not a lie, but heavy with guilt. Mary sighed. I just want you to be happy. You've always been the strong one. Don't let pride keep you from choosing well. Cynthia looked away, blinking fast. Pride wasn't the problem. Fear was. Uninvited guest. The next day, while Cynthia reviewed some blueprints at home, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, she answered. Congratulations, Ice Queen, came the voice. I see you found your charity case. It was John Baker. Cynthia's stomach turned. What do you want? Oh, nothing. Just thought you should know. Your little prince is being discussed at the Circle Club. Some folks there think they've seen him before. Not as a member, but as a cleaner. Her throat tightened. You're bluffing. Am I? Maybe. But ask yourself this. What happens when your mother finds out? or your clients, or the press. She ended the call without a word. Cracks in the glass. That evening, Cynthia confronted Christopher in the kitchen. "Did you ever work at the Circle Club?" she asked. He nodded slowly. 2 years ago. I swept floors there before I started doing handyman work in Sur-Larry. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to be ashamed." "I'm not ashamed of you," she said sharply, "but I can't protect you if I don't know the truth." Christopher lowered his gaze. "You shouldn't have to protect me." Cynthia sighed, pressing a hand to her temple. "This started as a game, Chris, but now we're not just pretending. We're exposed. People are watching, judging." Christopher looked up. "Do you regret bringing me into your life?" Her heart clenched. "No, but I'm scared." "So am I," he said gently, "but maybe being scared means we have something real to lose." A quiet decision. Later that night, Cynthia stood on her balcony, staring into the Lagos skyline. Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from her uncle. "The family group chat is blowing up. Everyone's excited to meet your fiancé. You'd better bring him." She turned to Christopher, who stood barefoot in the hallway, watching her. "We're really doing this," she said softly. He walked toward her and took her hand. "Yes," he replied, "but I want to do it right." She looked up. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to just act like your fiancé," he said. "I want to become someone who deserves you." Cynthia's throat tightened. "But you already are." 5 days to the family reunion. The house in Asia was unusually quiet. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt louder than usual. Cynthia Johnson sat on the sofa, laptop open, wedding ring catalogs displayed across the screen. She didn't need a real one, just something believable, elegant but not too flashy. Her fingers hovered over a buy now button, but her heart hesitated. "Let's go out," she said suddenly, glancing up at Christopher Adams, who had just stepped into the room. He looked surprised. "Out where?" "To get the ring," she replied. "In person. If this is going to feel real, it has to start looking real." The scent of leather and soft jazz welcomed them into the Velvet Ring, an upscale jewelry store in Ikoyi. Its glass displays shimmered with diamonds, each one screaming wealth, prestige, perfection. Christopher's steps slowed. "Are you sure we belong here?" he whispered. Cynthia squeezed his hand. "I've walked into boardrooms where no one thought I belonged." "Walk tall." A saleswoman approached, elegant in a black dress, silver coiled around her wrist. "Welcome," she greeted. "Looking for something special?" Cynthia nodded. "An engagement ring." Christopher added, "Something simple, classic." They were led to a velvet-lined tray of solitaires, brilliant, clear, painfully expensive. Cynthia pointed at one. "That's lovely," she said, then frowned at the price tag. "But it's a bit much for something temporary." The saleswoman smiled knowingly. "Actually, that one's been fully paid for." Cynthia blinked. "What?" The woman nodded. "Paid in full yesterday." The note said, "For the woman with kind eyes and the man who listens more than he speaks." Cynthia and Christopher exchanged glances, confused, stunned. Christopher asked, "Are you sure? That doesn't make sense." The saleswoman slid the ring box across the counter. "It's yours, no strings attached." Oh, back in the car, the velvet box sat between them like a secret. Cynthia opened it. The ring sparkled in the fading sunlight. It was perfect, princess cut, platinum band, minimalist, timeless. Christopher stared at it. "Do you think someone followed us? That woman in the store? She said kind eyes and a man who listens." "That's not random." "I don't know," Cynthia whispered. "Maybe someone's watching. Or maybe it's fate." Christopher looked at her. "Do you believe in fate?" "I didn't," she replied. "But lately everything feels too aligned to be coincidence." Growing storms. Later that night, over dinner, the mystery of the ring still sat between them. But so did something heavier. Truth. "What if this ends badly?" Cynthia asked her own. Christopher looked up. What if it doesn't? We've built this whole thing on a lie. What if someone at the reunion exposes you? Then I'll face it, but I won't hide from what I feel. She looked at him, startled. And what do you feel? He held her gaze. That I love you, and not because you saved me, because you let me see you, the real you, and you saw me too. Her throat tightened. Christopher, He leaned forward. You don't have to say it yet. I just wanted you to know. She reached across the table and took his hand. I see you, and I don't want this to end either. John returns. 2 nights before the reunion, Cynthia arrived home to find John Baker leaning against the building gate, arms crossed, wearing that smug smile she had grown to hate. You've lost your mind, he said as she walked past him. She ignored him. I warned you, you brought a nobody into your world, and now someone's leaking photos of him. Your firm might not like that. Cynthia stopped, slowly turned. You think I'm afraid of you? She asked coldly. John smirked. I think you're afraid of what he really is. You don't even know the full story, do you? She stepped forward. I'd rather build with someone real than pose with someone fake. Stay away from us, John, or I'll bury you with truth. She walked inside, shaking, angry, yes, but also deeply aware. This could explode. A promise under pressure. Later that night, she told Christopher everything. The leak, the warning, the threat. I'm not afraid, he said. I've lived with nothing. I've had my name dragged through mud. But this, you, is worth the risk. She looked at him, heart pounding. Put the ring on me, she whispered. He took the box, his hands trembling slightly, and slid the diamond onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They stood there in silence, staring at her hand. Neither of them spoke. They didn't have to. The line between fiction and truth had vanished, and what remained was love. The morning of the Johnson family reunion arrived with the weight of 1,000 expectations. Cynthia Johnson stood in front of the mirror in a flowing ivory gown. Subtle, elegant, commanding. Her hair was pulled into a low chignon, lips soft pink. The ring on her finger sparkled under the light, no longer a symbol of pretense but of something far deeper. Behind her, Christopher Adams adjusted the cuffs of his navy blue traditional agbada, tailored perfectly for the occasion. He looked regal, transformed, yet still him. You ready? She asked, her voice calm but tight. He met her eyes in the mirror. I've never been more scared, but never more sure. They walked out hand in hand. The family compound in Ikejagra was already alive with music, laughter, the aroma of smoky jollof, suya, and grilled fish. A small canopy tent covered a wide patio, and rows of relatives bustled in bursts of vibrant ankara. All heads turned when Cynthia and Christopher walked in. Whispers swirled like the Harmattan wind. He's so handsome. Where did she find him? I've never seen him before. Mary Johnson emerged from the crowd, arms wide and proud. My daughter, and my future son-in-law. Cynthia smiled warmly and hugged her mother. Mom, meet Christopher. Officially. Mary looked him over again with sharper eyes than before, but Christopher held his ground. It's an honor to meet everyone today, he said. The crowd clapped politely. The aunties and the interrogation. In a corner of the compound, a group of Cynthia's older aunties sat fanning themselves, sipping Chapman. One of them, Aunt Remy, waved them over. So, young man, she began, tell us, how did you two meet? Christopher smiled. Through mutual projects, architecture and consulting work. Another aunt asked, do you come from a good family? He hesitated just slightly. My parents passed away when I was young, but they raised me with faith, dignity, and discipline. The silence that followed was soft but loaded. Cynthia squeezed his hand under the table. The bombshell. Just as the toast began and drinks flowed, a sharply dressed man walked in, flanked by a woman in sunglasses. The air changed instantly. Cynthia froze. It was John Baker. And with him was Vanessa, a former high school friend turned gossip blogger. Hope you don't mind, John said loudly. I brought a little truth to the party. He pulled out his phone and projected a photo onto the rented screen. A photo of Christopher in janitor clothes mopping floors outside the Circle Club. Gasps filled the air. Ladies and gentlemen, John announced, meet the real Christopher Adams, cleaner, street rat, not some big consultant. The tent fell dead silent. Cynthia's heart stopped. Christopher stood, shoulders squared. His voice was low, steady. Yes, that's me. I was a janitor. I've swept floors, slept under bridges, gone days without food. But I never lied. Not to her, not about how I felt. And if that disqualifies me from standing beside her, then I'd rather leave with my head held high than stay and pretend to be what I'm not. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone clapped, then another, then half the tent. Mary Johnson stood slowly. She looked at Christopher, then at her daughter. Then she walked forward. My daughter has dated polished liars with no soul. But this man, she looked Christopher in the eye. This man, he's real. And that's more than I can say for half the people in this tent. Cynthia's eyes brimmed with tears. John scoffed and stormed out, Vanessa hissing behind him. That night, after all the guests had left and the compound returned to calm, Cynthia and Christopher sat in the garden. Stars blinked above. I didn't expect to lose it all today, he said. You didn't lose anything, she replied. You gained my mother's respect, and you showed everyone what it means to be true. He looked at her. I wasn't going to say this tonight, but I can't wait anymore. He pulled out the same velvet box, the same ring. But this time, no pretending. He opened it. Cynthia Johnson, will you marry me for real? Tears slid down her cheeks. She nodded. Yes, 1,000 times. Yes. He slipped the ring back onto her finger, this time not as a prop, but as a promise. And under the Lagos night sky, two strangers, an architect and a man once forgotten, sealed a future built not on status, but on truth. The media storm had long passed. The family reunion drama had faded into whispers. Gossip blogs had moved on to fresher scandals. But inside Cynthia Johnson's Aja apartment, life was changing. Quietly, beautifully. The once imaginary love story had become real. Cynthia sat at her home office desk, reviewing blueprints for a new affordable housing project she had been commissioned to design. This time not for the elite in Lekki, but for low-income families in Yaba, inspired in every way by Christopher. She glanced out the window where he stood in the backyard, laughing with a group of neighborhood kids. He had started teaching them basic math, reading, and even how to draw buildings. Every Saturday. He wasn't just rebuilding his life. He was building others. Cynthia's firm had gone through a rocky PR phase after the truth about Christopher's past went public, but in a twist no one expected, it sparked a campaign about second chances, and Cynthia became the face of resilience, empathy, and authenticity in a cutthroat industry. Meanwhile, Christopher, armed with self-education, experience, and a little push from Cynthia's network, was now working as a junior project consultant at an NGO focused on urban renewal. In Oro, he still used public buses, still helped the neighborhood watch, carry bags for elderly women, still walked with quiet humility. But he was different now. He was seen. The mysterious gift revealed. One quiet evening, they received a hand-delivered envelope at their gate. No name, no return address. Inside was a note written in clean cursive. Kindness never goes unnoticed. The ring was a gift, repayment for a good deed done years ago. You helped someone who once had nothing. And they never forgot. Cynthia's eyes widened. Attached was a receipt with the store's name, the velvet ring, and a paid invoice signed simply, "A friend you once fed." Christopher sat in silence. "I used to give my food away," he said slowly. "When I had nothing, I still gave what little I could." Cynthia reached for his hand. "God remembered," she whispered. They didn't want a wedding that echoed society's noise. No staged glamour, no elite banquet halls. Instead, they married in a modest chapel in Enugu, under an open sky, surrounded by Christopher's childhood friends, Cynthia's closest circle, and the children he now mentored. She wore a simple ivory dress. He wore a clean white caftan with navy embroidery. As they exchanged vows, Cynthia didn't cry until Christopher said, "I once had nothing but a name, but now I have a home, and it lives in your heart." Back in Lagos, they moved into a new space, still in Aja but now filled with laughter, paint-splattered sketches, bookshelves, and the scent of jollof rice shared at sunset. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the skyline they had both once feared, Christopher turned to her. "We built something, didn't we?" Cynthia smiled, leaning into his shoulder. "Not just something. We built everything. On love, on truth, on second chances." And as the lights of Lagos twinkled below, they held each other close. Two once broken souls who found not just healing, but home.